What's up, guys? How's everything? It's your man, Shannon Syas, and welcome to the S&S Chicago Podcast. I'm Shannon Syas, like I just mentioned.
And I'm Steve Silk Hurley.
And we have a special guest in the house tonight.
Yes, we
This
do.
is crazy. Not night, day, whatever you want to call it. We have a very good friend of ours. Just keeping it real. He's a good guy. Has done a lot. We're going to go over some of the things that he's done in his career. And it's none other than the infamous Bear Who, Fuzzy Cufflinxxx, Edwin Who. What do we call you, brother? We want to know.
Come on, man. We came up Bear, man.
All right, that's
Give it a
Bear.
round of applause. Round of applause.
for
Peace, y'all. Peace, y'all.
We happy to have you here, Bear, to be honest with you, man. And thank you very much for taking time out of your schedule, coming to rock with the S&S Chicago Podcast. You brought a couple of the homies with you, and it's cool because we're kind of impromptu when we do this, and we see you brought one of the homies, Pamp. Man, tell us a little bit about your history and the relationship that you have with Pamp, and then we're going to jump into you.
Okay, well, first of all, I want to say thank you to you guys. You know, it's an honor to be here, especially Skip, man. I've known you forever. You are my brother. And then, of course, the one and only Steve Silk Hurley, who the reason I'm actually sitting here is because of you. So thank you for what you've done. Well, a little story about Pamp, P-A-M-P. I have done a lot in the industry. I've been around for a long time and did the record store thing, radio thing, and the record store, record label, all that. So we're on the block on Fullerton. That's where we came up, and that's a whole subculture of the whole house community, especially being on the Humboldt Park North Side, Logan Square, that kind of thing.
Right.
And Pamp was one of these brothers that was in the mix at an early age, and he had that spark. He was a dancer. He just one of these all-around talented kids. So earlier, we'll get into it. I was part of this crew called AOU, all of us, and Fast Eddie, myself,
right.
Funk, rest in peace, Sneak. There was a bunch of us in this crew. And as we kind of went ahead with our professions and stuff, Pamp was dancing for Eddie. And as I started my journey into the record label, record industry kind of thing, I told him, I said, man, listen, when I had the opportunity to come back and sign you as an artist, I'm gonna do that.
That's
I
dope.
promise you that, because you're that dope. And he was just a great, great kid and great energy. You just knew it. So a couple years later, we'll get into it. I was working for Underground Construction, SHR, as an A&R and promotion director. And I had this idea to create like a house music boy band.
Wow.
Yeah. And I came up with this record and my idea of a song called Butter. So I pitched it to the label owner, DJ Attack, rest in peace. And I said, I got this kid, I had this idea. So I came back to the hood and I found Pamp and I'm like, yo, I want to bring you to Underground Construction. I want to do this idea. And Pamp's like, I'm a rapper, man. I don't know nothing about no house music.
Right.
So I was just like, no, I got this idea. So I brought him into the studio, and this is a really cool story. He'll tell you the same story. I brought him in, and I had this track going that I made with DJ Attack, and it's 125, 126 BPM. So I'm like, Pamp, this is the story. We're gonna do this. You're gonna get up there and you're gonna rap. So here's Pamp's first time at the studio. Boom, boom, boom. Pamp's just like this for like 20 minutes.
Right.
I'm like, you gonna say something? You ain't gonna do nothing? Pamp's like, he's like, yo, I'm a rapper, man. I don't know about this house thing. And
Right.
I'm like, you could do this, you could do this. Didn't happen. So Andy, DJ Tag, was like, bro, this ain't gonna happen. This dude doesn't got it.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm telling you, just give me some time. Next day, bring Pamp back, same thing. Attack is like, this is not gonna happen, Bear. You're tripping, it's not gonna happen. I said, dude, I'm telling you. So on our way back in the ride, Pamp's like, I can't do it, this is not my thing. I'm a rapper, and an incredible rapper at that. And I'm like, man, this is gonna work. This is gonna work. Everybody just kind of trusts me. The third day, we brought him back. Andy, DJ Tag, was like, man, this ain't gonna, all right, you know what? Let's get this over with because it ain't gonna work. So here comes the beat. Also, Pamp is like, time to raise up, looking for the butter. Turn around, girls, tell me where it's at. I'm like, there it is. There it is. And then from that time on, that was it. Like about 2 weeks later, we had finished all the remixes and it was all over the radio, and Pamp and Knox was born, man. And that's the story.
That's awesome, man. I'm happy you shared that. You know, Pamp's the homie.
Shout out to Pamp.
Shout out to Pamp. We love Pamp, and he's an incredible artist. If you haven't checked his music, check his music and get down with him. I'm telling you, he's the real deal. And then early life. Let's talk about that. Growing up in Logan Square, right?
That's right.
I mean, that's kind of incredible within itself because I know you had the ups and downs, I'm sure, growing up in Logan Square. So can you tell
It was
us a little
fun
bit
though,
about
man.
that?
Like I said, it made me who I am. Humble Park, Puerto Rican. Heavily influenced. I mean, being 10 years old, 1983, in Logan Square, you had the influence of salsa, merengue, you had freestyle, you had house, you had, my parents were very much into disco, and my father's into James Brown, Tabaras, Commodores, so I had all of this happening, finding all-stars, so music picked me. I always say that. It picked me, I didn't pick it.
Right.
I was not given a choice. And then one day, I was with my father in his car. I don't know, I was driving a parent conference or something, and I heard, Jack your body. I was like, that's it. I don't know what that is, but that's it. That is it. I love it. That's just what I want to do. Jack Your Body came on, and it changed my whole entire life, man. It made me like, wow, this is something different,
Did you know it was some people from Chicago doing it, or did you just kind of like hear it?
It was on the radio, which is a Chicago. It was like, I don't know if it was BMX or GCI or whatever it was at the time. But yeah, I knew it was a Chicago thing.
Oh, okay. You could tell by the sound of it.
Yeah, I just knew it,
Yeah.
And on the block, everybody was playing house. It was like this giant thing. And my parents, to get into the kind of the DJ thing about it, my parents were kind of big partiers. They liked to have fun. They had a lot of friends, Puerto Rican, Boricua, and all that. So they would throw little house parties. So the landlords of my building were a DJ team. And this is back, like I said, I was a young buck. And my parents threw a party, so they came down with all their equipment to DJ, and they came down. And at the time, it was mobile discos.
Oh.
It wasn't, as if you were a traveling DJ, you had a DJ, it's like mobile disco. So they came downstairs with all their crates and the lights, the Mars lights and the turntables and setting all that up. And I was like mesmerized. That's exactly what I want to do.
Wow.
So throughout my whole entire young life, we're dealing with gangs and all that stuff. It's Logan Square, Humble Park.
Right.
But the subculture, the house music thing was evident. But my parents were like, yo, you can mess with this whole house thing and DJing all you want, but you're gonna go to school, brother.
That sounds familiar.
That's not even a question.
Sounds very familiar.
Yeah. So one thing led to another, and here I am, 40 years later, still doing it.
Wow.
Thanks to you.
Oh, wow, man.
You.
Hey, I remember when I was DJing at these different places, and I transformed as a DJ because I had a false sense of security as a DJ, because every time I would do tricks and different things, there'd be a bunch of dudes in the front. But it was the people your age, like K Alexi and all those guys, they would be cheering me on because they were into the DJ part of the culture. But then I wasn't paying attention to what the rest of the room was doing. They were just kind of watching. But then when I started really DJing and not doing tricks and playing what I thought people wanted to hear, then I got a different kind of reaction. And the dudes in the front were still cool, but I had to learn that it's not just about that, because I came in as a battle DJ. I had to battle just to get the opportunity to play at Sawyer's and places like that. So that's all I knew was doing,
So you were more of a turntablist.
Yeah, but not a scratching one, but I was like into the beat juggling.
Interesting.
Beat juggling and moving the record up real fast.
Did you master reel to reel? Were you doing edits and stuff on reel to reel?
Yeah, that's at first I mastered the pause button on the cassette deck.
Yeah, so that's how we started.
And I figured out a rhythm where I could get it on beat.
Yeah.
When I got that, I was like, oh, this is crazy. Then when I saw I could actually find the beat on a reel-to-reel, mark it with a grease pencil, and cue it up and measure a beat. I figured out how to measure beats, measure a beat. I would measure a beat. It would be, say the beat was this long, right? Then I would make a mark on the reel-to-reel for a beat. So if I did a something that had a beat, but you couldn't hear whether it was on beat, I could find the next beat because I had a measurement of it. I could use that measurement. It was all mathematics. You're a teacher, so
Absolutely.
Hey, so you understand all that. My father was an engineer. I thought I wanted to be an electrical engineer, but that was the wrong engineer. I had the technical side in me and the creative, so I got a split brain right here.
I feel like, man.
I'm constantly in a battle with it,
That's amazing.
Is that kind of similar to yourself? I mean, as far as him saying he has like this split brain, was it just music and were you fixated and said, man, I just want to do music, I want to rock out like this? Or did you have other things that took interest? Was baseball?
Baseball. I played baseball my whole entire life up till college. But baseball was my thing. I thought I was going to be a pro and all that. So in high school, I played since a little, because I started playing ball, I think it was out. Maybe,
left field?
No, I wasn't an outfield. I'm a big boy.
I
thought I was going to be an all-star third baseman, and then I realized that big boys can't play third base.
Oh.
So then they put you behind the plate. But I was just like,
and you didn't like the catcher thing?
Because I'm like, I can field very well. So they're like, yo, you're a big dude. You're a number 4 power hitter. You're playing first.
So you were like a big dude, you were chunky.
Yeah, my whole entire
you weren't
life.
Really
That's how I got the name Bear.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
I would have never known that.
So in the subculture, I always call it subculture, but in the house community, especially in Chicago, we'll get into this too because I have a lot to say about this. But we had what's called party crews, and basically there were dance crews, that in the neighborhoods, and it was all house related. So we had hundreds of party crews throughout the whole entire city. We had a party crew called House on the Boulevard.
Oh, wow.
And the membership was over 200 people. And it was every single high school in the city. And we started off on Logan Square. That's where we started off, the whole House on the Boulevard thing. We used to kick off the parties where we originated in a church where we used to throw parties called St. John Birchman's in Logan Square. And I actually went there as a kid too.
Wow.
But the gym, the youth center is where we kicked off. And then since all the kids were all together, we gave ourselves a name.
Wow.
We had DJs and everything.
So you said it was multiple party crews.
Yeah.
And then you had all of these dance groups.
Yeah. The dance groups were actually part of the party crews. Like we have our dancers. You know what I mean? It's like you have your dancers.
Now this was house music and hip hop or both? Because
it was this was house. Like we're
straight up house.
So yeah. So we basically it was when they would perform, it was like jack your body, yeah, boy.
Oh, like that.
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, okay.
So we created this culture like that. So you
all made your own little tapes. To place that was already pre-mixed to practice. Yeah.
So going back to what you said, that's how I started mixing. My parents couldn't afford DJ equipment and whatnot. So I would have 3 radios in my basement. Well, first of all, I would record the mixes.
Right.
My dad would be in his room recording GCI, and I'd be in my room recording BMX all night. So then in the morning, my dad had his GCI, and then we would swap, and we had everybody's mixes.
Wow.
Throughout all the time.
That's crazy.
So what I would do is I would try to learn how to mix by one radio had Kenny Jam and Jason, let's say's mix, and I had another, Mickey Mix and Oliver's mix, and then on the third radio, I'm trying to record myself trying to mix on pause.
What?
You can't hide from yourself, baby. Where you go, there you are. Dance.
You would do that while you were recording?
It sounded like shit. It was horrible.
Wow.
But that's how I learned.
But you learn how to time it. You push it a half a beat before, and it'll be on beat. That type of stuff.
So then we mastered the art of mixed pause tapes where you would edit.
Wow, that's crazy. I never thought I'd find somebody so crazy as me.
No, we would do that. That's what we would do.
So that was your first attempt at trying to.
Yeah, and I actually still in my house today. I have the first pause mixtape that I ever made. Still, I don't want to play it because I know I think
right.
But I still have it. A cassette where it's wearing off.
Wow.
Now that's incredible considering that you did that and then transitioning into, like, for example, because the thing that I think about when I hear about that era, that time frame, and these house music dance crews, but then you also had these break dance crews. Now, was it ever some sort of rivalry?
It's all the same thing. So
it was all the same thing.
Yeah. So remember, we had the house music thing from Chicago, which was hard and heavy, and then the influence now from New York, the whole hip hop thing.
Right.
So it was kind of like a mixture of everything at one time, and you still had the freestyle aspect of it, which people don't realize that was just as big of a part of it, especially in the Latino community. Freestyle is like religion.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So. It was a mixture of all this. So then I was like, okay, I'm going to attempt to get on the turntable and do this. But before I did it, so I'd be embarrassed, I was taking my father's turntables. You had those, those old school record players at the record player, and you had the 8-track cassette. I broke every single turntable my father had because they're not meant to spin on. They're not direct drive, which is a motorized, right? So they use belt drive. So I'm like trying to spin it backwards, like, pop.
And you didn't even have like a slip. You didn't have a slip mat. You didn't have like a.
Let me tell you, we used to create our own slip mats.
Yeah.
We used to use aluminum foil.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And then we would put something on top of the aluminum foil. And that was so they wouldn't scratch the record.
I think we used like wax paper.
Yeah, so wax paper too. And aluminum foil and like wax paper or something to that effect.
Then they came out with the slip mats.
Yeah, and then that's how we were able to do it. And in 8th grade, I'll never forget, in 8th grade is when I really started picking up the DJ stuff, and it was already a competition.
Wow.
At that point.
So
we were so young, I was 13.
Wow, that's crazy. So you saying very young. So you saying 13 years old, and then just by taking a look at different things. So you started promoting parties early as well.
Yeah, right off the bat.
Being 13 and then
so you got three brains.
Being a party promoter.
Wow.
How was that? Like, take us on that journey.
I guess I got it. Not thinking about it. I guess something from my parents, especially my dad. My dad's somebody that's real social and has a nice following of close friends. And I've always been the kind of guy that I'm patient, but I'm like, why don't I just do it? I don't like waiting around for people to do stuff. I'm like, I'm just gonna do it, What I mean? And I think at 13 years old, 8th grade, I started throwing parties at a church basement that my father used to rent out for me. And I would be like, hey, I would charge like $2, $3 for my 8th grade class and the 7th grade class to go to the church and party. And at the time, I didn't have DJ equipment. So one of the kids, Francois, we used to call him Francois. He was young. But his father believed in the whole DJ thing and bought him equipment, and that was like 1980. I don't know, maybe 84, 85 in that era. And Francois already had equipment.
Wow.
So his dad had a big white van, and he would stuff all the equipment in there, the turntables and the fly case and the 2 speakers or whatever, and we would pay him $100. And that he would supply the equipment for the night, what I mean? And we had a bunch of kids like 12, 13, 14 years old.
That's about right. I used to hire people for like $125 and they bring the...
Yeah. And then his Francois' father would just wait till the party was over at an early time, and then that was it. And that's when I first was like, yo, there's all that. Wow. And what made us even better DJs was the fact that everybody was a DJ and a young kid, so it's competition. So like you said about K. Alexi standing in front of you when you were spinning, I would have like 10 kids. Boy, all the guys, mess up. Hope he messes up. Trying to bump the...
Did any of those people become DJs that you remember?
I remember and respect them all.
Yeah.
In my head.
Yeah.
In my heart.
That's
yeah.
dope.
As a matter of fact, we had a party a couple of days ago, and a lot of them showed up from the old school.
Oh, wow.
And it was a little bit of a reunion, but a lot of memories came back to play.
Because I think about how I was inspired by the people I was like. When Kenny Jason came out on Disco DAI with Peter Lewicki, this was like 79.
Yeah, I know the history. I know the history now.
I was like in high school and stuff, and I'm hearing him doing like these seamless blends of records that I like, and disco was kind of fading out, but it was still some good soulful disco, Chaka Khan, Donna Summer, and people like that. They were playing all that, Stephanie Mills, all that stuff. And that was like inspiring for me. So when I finally met him, I'm like, this is Kenny Jason I'm meeting, what I'm saying? It's just like, I always just...
That's crazy.
No matter what age, even when I first met Ralphie, it was the same thing with me and him. Even though he was only like 14 or 15, he had like the 1800s that were hard to... You remember those 1800s?
Do you remember what high school he went to?
I didn't know anything about that.
The high school I went to.
Oh, he went to your high school?
I went years later, but yeah.
Yeah, I actually learned how to hot mix from him because he was like jumping from verse 1, which was followed by a chorus. He would jump to verse 2, and he would bring in the chorus from verse 2, and then the break would come after that. But he would do it where you couldn't hear it. So when the chorus came in, he'd bring in that second chorus instead of the first, and he would just slide the fader over like that. You don't even know he did it. So what people don't realize, those are called... He was editing live.
Yeah, but you had to have 2 records.
Yeah, so that's why I ended up having 2 records for the rest of my life.
I had to buy 2 records because you had to be able to go back and forth, find the breaks. And I learned,
not like today where you could just set cue points and all that stuff.
We were 10, 11, 12 years old, 13 years old, learning that. You guys were already older, conventing it, so we had quite a bit of a time to perfect
that was new
it.
to us.
Yeah.
That was a new thing, when I was starting. Like, people on my block weren't DJing like that.
Now, see, that's awesome for you to even mention those guys' names.
And shout out to Robbie. It was Robbie Rosario that actually gave me he's Puerto Rican. He came out with Baila.
Oh,
and that was the first record I ever went and bought.
Wow.
You know what's crazy?
Yeah.
What high school was that?
Carl Schurz.
Oh, wow.
Shout outs to them. Because
Schurz Bulldogs.
Schurz Bulldogs. Look, I mean,
the home house on the boulevard.
They turning them out. Obviously,
some was going right out there.
Some was going right there. So shout out to them. And then you guys mentioning those guys, WBMX. I know that's a big influence.
Huge. The influence.
Yeah, and the Hot Mix 5.
Absolutely.
So now you got BMX and then the Hot Mix 5, and then how does that take a factor or play a role with you as a young creative?
It's summertime. It's 12 noon. Everybody's on my porch. We got the radio and everybody's just jamming to it. So all these mixes. Every car that drives by.
Wow.
Mixes, And then, people don't remember is that BMX had different time slots for their mixes. Like they had the midday lunch mix at 12.
Mm-hmm.
I think they had the drive home 6:30, 10 o'clock. And that was just, I think, during the weekday. And then starting about like 10 o'clock at night on, 102.7 FM. This is Armando,
Right.
We're going to start off today with Kenny, Jam, and Jason. And then you already knew what time it was, and then you would sit there all night, recording mix after mix.
Yeah, that was crazy.
But the influence was so heavy that it created a culture, Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say this because I guess we're there right now. When you say the North Side and the Latino community held down house music just as much as the Frankie Knuckles and what was going on. And here's the deal. I always see it as the story is only being half told. Because every time you hear the story, whether I'm in London or Ibiza or wherever, or Miami or here, it's always like, Frankie. And absolutely.
You see who I mentioned? I mentioned Kenny and Ralph.
However,
you know what I'm saying? We had a lot of influences. It wasn't just, it was a groundswell of different people doing different things in different areas. It wasn't just one person. There's no godfather of house music.
I'm 10 years old, 11 years old, 13 years old. I'm not hanging out the warehouse.
Right.
Come on, let's be real. Right. We're doing our own thing. So
and your warehouse and the warehouse you're talking about is probably the one on Randolph.
So yeah. No, but I knew of. But I'm a baby.
Yeah, I couldn't even go to the one to Frankie's warehouse.
So when people are like, I was at the warehouse. I'm like, dude, how old were you? 9?
Yeah.
They were letting you in the warehouse to see, come on now.
Yeah, ain't no way.
So that came from me way later. But what I'm saying is the Latino, Puerto Rican, and the communities, the younger kids never get the props. Like not props, but
when I got to Hot Mix 5, I started DJing not only on the South Side and the West Side and downtown area, but I started DJing in Julian's area. What's that area? Not Schaumburg. Where was Dillagaff's?
Schaumburg, isn't it?
Was it Schaumburg? Yeah. Okay, like those northwest suburbs and stuff like that. Yeah. And I couldn't believe that they knew the music. I never went to like your neighborhood, so I don't know how your
No, but that's what I'm saying. We had clubs, we had high school parties, we had parties because there was thousands of us.
Yeah.
If you were to break it down to finance, how much money the Latino house community poured into this, you're talking millions, right?
Yeah.
However, you never hear that story. You don't hear about the party crews. You don't hear about, Janelle's and Rainbow and all the different DJs that we'll never hear of that are probably some of the greatest of all time. I'm just saying that the story's half told.
Yeah, I love what you're saying.
You know what I'm saying? And the Latino community and the young community. I mean, think about it. If I'm playing at 10 years old, or not playing, but in the culture,
right?
I wasn't going to be 21 for another 11 years,
right?
So for 11 years, we were getting down.
That's crazy.
You know what I'm saying? Making records, flyers, parties, party crews, cassettes, mixtapes, record stores.
What'd your dad think of all this?
He was into it 100%.
Wow.
My dad backed me up 100%.
I love it.
I wanted my.
Because you said he was a DJ.
My dad was actually a band manager and played the trumpet.
Oh, okay.
So my dad was always into music. Like I said, I was surrounded by music. My grandmother.
So you learned a lot from your dad.
Oh man, yeah. My dad.
You probably learned a lot about business and everything.
My mom was into more rock. So I learned a lot about the Beatles and Clarence Clearwater Revival and Paul Revere and the Raiders and my uncles, her brothers were into like Rush and Who and smoking a lot of weed and long hair as Puerto Ricans,
Right.
So I was like, I had no choice.
You had the best of both worlds, and then you saying that, man, it's almost interesting hearing it. Is because I think when you start dealing with genres and cultures, especially within music, I mean, we're all at a united front because music connects us all. It creates that common bond.
No doubt.
Now, where do you in fact think, because everyone has their own opinions about it in some form and fashion, where do you think the disconnect comes from when the story is either half told or not told in its entirety?
There's not enough of us, my generation. There's only a few of us that actually got to the point where we could tell the story.
Wow.
At least from my neighborhood or my culture, my time, which, like you said, I've been blessed where I can hang out with a Steve Silk Hurley and a Skip and a Kenny Jason or a Scott Sills or a Julian Perez or a Sneak or an Armand Van Helden or a Todd Terry or Daft Punk. That was my blessing, because I really feel that the music picked me to be its soldier. And that's the truth, because there was hundreds of us.
Wow.
And the fact that, I don't know if you want to call me an ambassador or chosen, whatever the case may be, that I'm here sitting with you, it's a blessing.
Wow.
For sure,
awesome.
right?
That's awesome.
But I said the disconnect is we have people like me in my generation, we don't get to have the opportunity to talk on the mic and say our story. So the people that are internationally known are the ones that say the story. So it was like, the Warehouse and, Frankie and I was there too. I know Frank was one of my mentors and a great, great friend, and I respect and hype, but I'm like, man, y'all it's like, if I want to get religious real quick, I won't, but it's like, okay, that's the Old Testament. There's a New Testament too.
Right.
And the New Testament ain't been talked about.
Right.
See what I'm saying? And the New Testament is, we had kids that were doing this.
Right. For real too.
Even me as a club goer, although I was a DJ, I was also a club goer as well. So in the earlier part of the evening, I was maybe DJing for all these different school parties. I mean, just anything. Because you think about being on the radio, you're getting all different people booking you and stuff, right? But when it was like 2:00 in the morning or 3 in the morning, what places were still open? Frankie's Power Plant, was open. The Music Box, Ron Hardy. That's when I experienced those guys was in the late night. So that doesn't mean that late night is just the house, that the house scene is just the late night. It's everything.
It's everything.
It's the whole combination of me being in the suburbs with Julian Perez DJing, and then going with Kenny Jason somewhere at Rainbow or with Tony Batoy. Like I'm going to all kinds, and then I'm at the Bismarck with people like Lil Lewis.
Yeah, Ferris Thomas.
Like, so you can't leave all these people out. That's why we're doing this, because we want people to know that this scene started because of a collective effort, not because of one particular person. I could pull out records that I've done and try to compare to other people. Like, I've done this many records, so I'm the Godfather. I don't ever do that, because that's not a fair statement. I wouldn't, if I didn't have a collective community of the house culture that existed before the genre started. There was a culture of people that were into think about the music from Europe.
Yeah, the Italian disco.
That's what we were playing on BMX.
Absolutely.
Before we were playing house, and then when we started doing house, we were playing both.
Absolutely.
And then you had the
Latin. Then it became that it was all house considered. Yeah. We were like, it didn't matter.
Then Kenny and Ralphie had kind of a Latin influence. Even Kenny I don't even think Kenny's Hispanic, but I think his stuff kind of had a little bit of that.
I swear to God, I thought he was Latino until I met him. I'm like,
and Mickey Oliver, he had like, I don't know, the suburban influence, but then he still loved all types of music. Absolutely. Scott Sills, like all those guys were a part of this. It's not just one thing. It's easy for somebody to look at their own accomplishments and say, it's because of me. Yeah. But if you do that, you're not going to last in this business.
And it's never, there's no I in team. Right. It's not a we, it's a us.
It was an army, man.
It's all those DJs were playing my records. I wouldn't even have a career if those guys didn't play my records. So how would I turn my back on them if I got some success and I decide to just act like I'm the man and nobody else did anything? How do you think that makes them feel when they're the ones who said, man, he's from Chicago, let me play his record. Yeah. Even if they didn't like it yet, some of them were playing it. Because sometimes this stuff got to grow on you.
Yeah. And that's the unity part of what you said, is the fact that everyone is Chicagoans, and it's a culture and a genre that has spread and became this phenomenon all over the world. Absolutely. And it's great making that mention, because that's actually crazy. I thought the thing was down. So it was great making a mention about what you guys are talking about as far as the Hot Mix 5. and all of the guys that played a role within the Hot Mix 5, but even crazier, Julian Jumpin' Perez.
Props.
You know, what's your relationship with Julian, and how was he influential in the rise in your career?
Man, Julian, first of all, Julian was the most dirtiest dude I've ever heard on a turntable in my life, especially growing up. And, you know, everybody had the little monikers when it came to DJing, the little drops. And Mickey Mixon Oliver had Rodney Dangerfield, Mickey Mixon Oliver.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And Julian had that, get on down and party. As soon as you heard that, you knew what time it was.
Right.
And he had that Spanish, Latino, hardcore Fullerton, Humboldt Park following. Like, he would play the Latin stuff, and then he would scratch, and he would just do things that were just unbelievable. I fell in love with the guy. And I was a kid listening to anytime Julian Jumpin' Perez would come on. He was like a god to me, you know? And at the same time, growing up listening to him, growing up a little bit, we're throwing parties, you know, like at St. John Birchman's and whatnot. I'm still 14, 15, 16 years old, whatever at the time. And we would book these guys. And for people that don't know, little insight, the guys would book themselves in increments of a 30-minute set or an hour set. Because that's how it would be on the radio. You had your 30-minute sets.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we would book Julian, and I kind of got known as a host.
Wow.
So I would always be on the microphone at the parties introducing everybody. Even though I love the DJ stuff, you know, I was like, I like the hosting stuff too. You know, I let all my other guys DJ and whatever. So we would book Julian on a regular basis, and Bill and some other people. And even in the high schools, like the high school's parties, we would have parties like Gordon Tech was jumping off with parties all the time. They would book Julian. But I would also be asked to host these events. So Julian and I became friends. You're friends with one of your heroes, right? Mm-hmm. So we became friends. And then one day he asked me, he's like, yo, you play baseball, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
What?
yeah, I do. He goes, well, we got a little team from the B96 mix team, headed by Frankie Hollywood Rodriguez. Oh. He's like, would you want to try out and come practice with us? And I'm like, what? Julian Perez is asking me to hang out with him?
Right.
Long story short, I was a baller. We went, played, and then I became part of the homies. So I'm hanging out with, you know, Tim Schomer, Frankie Hollywood Rodriguez, Cool Rock Steady, Lee Farmer, you know, cool. Bad Boy Bill, because they all played ball on this team.
Oh, so it's a connection there.
So that's how it all started. And then Julian's like, yo.
Connection.
Yeah, so Julian started picking my brain a little bit more about, yo, you really know this house music thing. I'm like, dude, I lived it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's how we started hanging out. And I was 17. I was a senior in high school at the time, actually.
So what about jumping music? When did you start? When did you start working in jumping music?
So a few years later, Julian decides that he's going to open up a record store. And the first person he went to was like, dude, you got to work at the store. I'm like, oh my goodness, absolutely, you know? And there we are at the, you know, on Grand over there, in Grand and Fullerton, banging nails and putting it all together. And we created this entity, this superpower called Jumpin' Music, which was the record store that I was, you know, one of the faces of the store. And that's when I met everybody. You know, Julian was taking me to the warehouse. And this is true. Now I'm 18 years old. Julian's like, okay, they did the B96 live party, if you guys remember. So we would go live to all these different, you know, B96 Live Totals and Eric's North and Prime and Tender. And it would always end up at the warehouse. So Julian's like, look, you're going to go to the warehouse. You're going to go to these parties with me, but you are underage. So you better sit down here. Don't move.
Right.
And then that's when I was like exposed to Armando. I'm an 18-year-old kid, you know, in the basement listening to Armando and Mike Dunn and K. Alexi and Cool Rock and Joe Smooth and Benji Espinoza and Rocky Jones. Wow. And I'm like, this is it. This is amazing. And I just started meeting more and more people. And then my influence on the street as far as Fullerton and coming up, it was easy for people now to find me with the mixtapes at Jumpin' Music. And Bear had his own store. Bear worked for Julian. Wow. And Julian was a huge factor and mentor to me, man. Like I remember him telling me, and I would see him, we'd do the live thing, and Julian had his rule, like, you got 2 records, man, to get the party jumping. You got 2, and you better, yeah. And he would do it every time. That's one thing about Julian, is like, when he got down, bro.
Wow.
You know? And then you're seeing these guys, you know, live. And then it got to the point where Julian's like, okay, let's, now you're going to help me with my mixes, my mixtapes. So we make sure we had all the newest records, you know, from the record store, I would tell me, we got this one, this one, this one. And we would go make the mixtapes for the radio later on that evening.
Now, what were you thinking by having these relationships and building them and they becoming strong? Were you thinking, man, I can jump off the cliff or jump off the porch and really jump in this thing and really do it?
No, I was still more of a fan.
Oh,
even though on my own I knew I could get down, but I wanted to be part of the industry now. I was, take it from where I was, breaking my father's turntables and whatnot and doing my 8th grade stuff. Now I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do something a little different. And I left the block. Instead of hanging out with all the homies all the time on the block, now I'm like on the radio. Now I'm in the record store. I'm learning the industry from the inside, which is something else because working at a record store, you learn how about buying, you learn about distributors, you learn about relationships with record labels, you learn about inventory, you learn about that, you learn about getting on the phone and calling a Barney's, calling Ray Barney, be like, hey, I need some of that Ghetto Mania stuff, the Dance Mania stuff up here, man, and the mixtapes, and calling Judy at Downtown 121 and doing all that, So I learned that aspect of it, which was essential. So now it's like a school. I was going to, and before that, right after the jumping music thing, I wound up going, well, that's another story. We'll get to that.
What's that? No, I want to know because is it so you're at jumping music and it seemed like you moved around a bit and then you ended up at Gramophone.
Yeah, so jumping music, so there's a whole other aspect of it. So as we got to know each other, hang out more and more, you're messing around like boys. And I had this little voice, this little character I used to do to make fun of like these girls that were like trying to jock and whatever. They had the big earrings and the hair and the eyeliner. So I used to call them, oh, look at that Cookie. Look at that Cookie. They always had names like Cookie or Loca or Bubbles, whatever. So we started making fun of that kind of thing. And I had made a little character, like a voice. And we would always be laughing and whatever. And then Julian one day was like, yo, you should do that on one of my mixtapes. So we did this skit and it blew up. We did this thing called Cookie. So when Julian had this idea to go on B96 to do this Sunday show called Street Flavor, which was a mix show radio station, but on Sundays from like 5, I think, to like 9. Right. It's myself, Mike Dunn, Tim Schomer, and Julian. And I played Cookie, that character we invented on the radio, and that blew up as a character.
Wow. Right.
So, the mixtapes, we'd be driving down the street and you hear my voice coming out of all these cars, the mixtapes, and it became like a little cultural little phenomenon. Wow. So I did that for a while. But then I kind of want to spread my wings. I was kind of like, okay, I did the B96 thing, I did the radio thing. I was a little older at the time. Now I'm like 22, about that age. And I'm like, it's time for me to spread my wings. So I went with Pamp and all these guys. They were like, listen, we tried to open up a record store. It's not working. Maybe you could come and take it over. So I owned my own record store for a little bit.
Wow.
It was really tough because it was in the hood.
Right.
And then out of nowhere, and that's when I was really, really close with Fast Eddie. And people don't know that me and Fast Eddie were like inseparable at a time.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was around when we did the whole booty call thing, performed it live, did the rib thing, B96 bash kind of thing. But at the same time, not only was I doing the radio thing, I was also doing the underground thing. I was also doing the techno thing. I was also doing the rave thing. I was also doing the hip hop thing. Zulu Nation was a big deal, part of my life. Wow. So I had all this going on, and that's why I said I was blessed. I was able to hang out with the Steve Hurleys or the Kenny Jasons or the Hyperactives or the Armandos or the Mike Dunns or the... Right. It didn't matter. I was keyed in with everybody. You know what I mean? And that's a shorty. So after that, after the whole Fast Eddie thing and the booty call thing, Sneak, shout outs to Sneak, comes out of nowhere. He's like, because Sneak already had done like 2 or 3 records that blew up. He was doing the disco filter sound. And New York had eaten him up. They were loving him. So Sneak was like, listen, man, I can't work at Gramophone anymore because I'm touring and they're going to need somebody to replace me. Would you take that position?
Oh, wow.
And Gramophone is like the university of record stores. So I'm like, wow. So now I'm going from B96, jumping music, owning my own record store, Fast Eddie, all this, now I'm at Gramophone. Wow. I'm like, absolutely. Yeah. I'm going to go. So I'll never forget that I was sitting down with Joe Dale, the owner of Gramophone at the time. Right. And him going over, doing a little interview and me like, you got the job. Wow. I was so happy.
That's awesome. Wow. And then how was that pivot? Because I'm sure being at Gramophone.
That's how the Bear Who came.
Is that how Bear Who, so Bear Who was born at Gramophone?
I'm a Gramophone.
Wow. Yeah. Now you heard it here. Bear Who was born at Gramophone.
Yeah. So I was always Bear. I was a big boy. Right? So our nickname Bear is simple, right? So as I go to Gramophone, they're like, oh, there's Rafi Rosario. Oh, there's Ricardo. Oh, there's Mark Farina. You know what I mean? There's G-Most. You know, oh, there's Sneak. Oh, there's Bear. Bear who?
Right.
And I was just like, I took that so personally, and I'm like, everybody's gonna know my name because I could do this.
Wow.
And at the time, I was really keen on skill because you're messing with the best. So it's like, and at the time the rave scene was really popping off. So I'm like, you know, if you're gonna spin with Lego, you better have it.
Right.
If you're gonna spin with Mark Grant,
you better
come with it.
Right.
Oh yeah.
You know, if you're sitting down with Psycho Bitch, you better come with it. And I always pride myself, like, I don't give a damn who it is. It could be Steve Silk Hurley. It could be Frankie Knuckles. It could be, I'm going to come with it. You better be careful because I'm going to dust you. Because I took it as a huge competition every time. It was my sport.
Right.
So I wanted to be fierce. You know,
people
Justin.
People didn't want to come after this guy.
No,
when he was overseas.
You know what I mean?
Or just anywhere.
You know, Justin Long, Terry Mullen.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Colette. You're talking about, you know, the Funk, all the guys from the South Side. You know, like, you better. So I want to be able to hold my own.
So that environment pushed you.
Absolutely.
So every single time when you went to the table, you thought to yourself, man, I got to come with my A+ game every time because I want people to leave here with an authentic Bear Who experience.
Yeah, I wanted to be one of them dudes. You know, Paul Johnson, Robert Armani. I mean, you got the best of the best of the best of all time. So I wanted to be in that, and consider that.
Yeah.
Now let me ask you. Now mentioning Paul, rest in peace to Paul Johnson and Rob and all of the guys, Derek Carter, Honey Dijon. I mean, you've been in the game, and now at that point, you developed this moniker, and now Bear Who has become this brand. You know, outside of it being just Bear Who. It's like Bear Who became an actual staple and a brand, and you had a run-in or a relationship with Daft Punk. Yeah,
simple. Sneak was already traveling. He knew all these guys. I was Sneak's, you know, that was my boy, my partner.
Right.
So I remember us talking about it one day, and he's like, "Yo, you know, Thomas and G-Man, whatever." I remember how the conversation happened, but I knew of them. Tracks on the Rocks, Creed Moore was already popping off. Was it Creed Moore? No, Roulette. And one day I'm at Gramophone, and there's these two skinny little Parisians in there. And then they're like, they asked for me. And I'm like, yeah, I'm Bear. He's like, oh, you're DJ Sneak's friend. Oh, my name is Thomas Bangalter. This is Guy-Man. I was like, oh, you the dude that did that, or, you know, Roulette thing. Yeah, Daft Punk, yeah. Oh, cool, man. You know, yeah, whatever, blah, 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 here it is. Here's something I'm going to tell you. It's the truth. They were obsessed with Chicago house. They wanted to know it all. So at Gramophone, we had the mixtape cassettes in the middle. Funk, Sluggo, Waxmaster, Tao, all the fellas. I gave them all those mixtapes.
Right.
Yo, and actually, I don't know who else. I called somebody, be like, yo, they're here. They want to meet you, whatever. Because they were in a van going around the whole country, meeting everybody. Those mixtapes are in the cover of Homework.
Wow.
So if you go to the album, the album, Homework, the double, those mixtapes that are in there are the ones that I gave them.
Wow.
Yeah, if you see, like, they have DJ Funk and whatever. Yeah.
Wow, that's the...
Yeah, so we became super, 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 super cool friends. Like,
that's awesome.
Amazing friends, you know.
Wow.
Cedric.
Yep.
Pedro Winter.
Yep.
Eric the Wizard, who is visually impaired.
Right.
He was part of the team. And we became, you know, that.
That's
and every
awesome.
time they were in the States or whatever, we kept in touch, and we became, you know, great, great friends.
That's awesome.
So that's the whole Daft. But it was at Gramophone.
Wow.
So props to Common. Common would always come in too, and I would be seeing Common like, wow.
Yeah. You know, Common was a fabric of Chicago. Like, whatever it was, Common was popping up at the rave party.
There's a couple people though. If we're gonna do the Gramophone thing, there's a couple people I want to recognize. So Oscar McMillan, who you'll never hear about.
Yep.
One of the greatest DJs and souls. Daryl Woodson, who passed away, another one. And it was just a revolving door, the best of the best of the best coming in and out of that store, man. And then you had the vinyl. You had first crack at everything, which made it a whole other game. So
let me ask you, do you think a place like Gramophone is still a thing with the whole digital space? Do you think it can happen again? Do you think Gramophone could happen again, or something similar to Gramophone? Or are we just far gone and now things have evolved and we just in?
That was the culture and the time, man. You know, Gramophone today is not the Gramophone from a couple of years ago. You know what I mean? And especially now that vinyl's like resurgence and vinyl, the popularity of vinyl. Vinyl is all that existed at the time. So Gramophone wasn't just a vinyl place, it was a cultural center.
Right.
People would just go to Gramophones to hang out. You know what I mean?
Wow.
All day long. And I would be there, 10 o'clock in the morning, me and Josh Warner getting the stuff ready, and people coming in and running to the front. And we had like Ramit there and Serafini and Hector Lopez, Andy Moy. It was something else. You were coming into Gramophone and, had all the DJ mags and all the mix mags there. So you knew it was a cultural thing.
Right.
And see, I love it. And we're going through this journey with you, and this is crazy because this is great that people now get an opportunity to really connect with the full story of how you evolved from this young man that was enthusiastic and passionate about a genre of music to meet all of his heroes. And then in lieu of meeting his heroes, to at that point, put everything that he's had inside out on front, and people recognized you for it, which is crazy. Yeah. And then for example, I was looking like, for example, Street Flavor. What was that? Because I know you're co-hosting, right, at a point?
Yeah, with the B96
With the B96
Yeah, but basically, Julian was the head.
Julian was the head. Okay,
Julian
so that was that. Okay.
And Cookie was like a side thing, and I was looking at that time like, yo, but I'm also Bear. Like, I got a story to tell, and I
got you.
I do that too. But there was Julian's show. It was Julian's show, and it's props to Julian, man. If it wasn't Julian, I wouldn't be put in this position.
So was Julian the catalyst that was trying to push that underground to the commercial audience and find a way to bridge the gap?
Julian's an entertainer, and his mixes had to be just like that. Like, for instance, it was ourselves, and I could say I had a big influence. I was the one that put hip hop on B96.
Wow.
Because we decided that we were going to play hip hop during a house mix. So we started incorporating, jump around and here we go, yo, here's the scenario. And Tennessee, they weren't banging stuff like that. Right. So, I remember the way we used to do it was props to Richard Humpty Vision and those guys in the West Coast, because they had that jump, jump, and it slows down. Yeah. And then Julian would bring in the boom, boom, mommy, no man, Bob. And then, it's Tennessee, and then it was a hip hop thing. And it became so popular that all the other DJs started doing it too.
Right.
Then next thing you know, a couple weeks later, months later, those records that were playing they were adding them to the regular playlist.
Wow.
Then you started hearing Tennessee on a regular rotation. You know what I mean? Like, that wasn't happening before us. And then you can see it because when you go by the mixtapes, the playlists. So you can go back and you can see the playlist like, oh, this is when that started.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Wow. That's incredible. And just hearing that is almost special. Now, what do you think about when you think about that moment in time? If you had one word to describe it, what would it be? Fantasy. Wow.
It's a fantasy. It's a little kid, 10 years old, sleeping and dreaming like this was happening. So sometimes, even right now, to be honest with you, I got to pinch myself. You know what I mean? One of the greatest Dance Mania artists ever is Pamp, Steve Silk-Hurley, and Skip. Like, how the hell did I get here? It hits me every day. And, and then to come back to Chicago, and today's my mother's birthday.
Oh, man, happy birthday, Mom. That's happy awesome, birthday, man. Mom. Happy 70th. Yeah, so this is awesome.
I will say this, man. When it comes to this house music thing, I'm real cocky because I can hold my own. But I feel that I belong here.
Man,
you definitely belong.
That's incredible. And then when you say that and connecting with all these people, and I see you got the Mangaloids, big ups to the Mangaloids, got the hoodie on. Talk a little bit about the Mangaloids, man. Who are the members, man? So it's almost like most crews, it'd be these distant cousins and 1,000 people that say they're a part of something and then they're not necessarily a part of it. But who are the core factors of the Mangaloids?
Three. It was three. It's Armand Van Helden, Junior Sanchez, and Carlos DJ Sneak.
Wow.
And Sneak, so me and, like I said, Sneak and I were really, really tight. So we knew the schedule. Like, Sneak was traveling all over the world doing his thing. So I'm driving him to the airport, picking him up. You know what I mean? That's we're crew. That's what you do, right? And he came back one day. I was like, yo, here in Chicago, this track had come out. Not from Chicago, but we were rocking it. I remember Bill was the first one that showed it, that played it for me. The Witch Doctor. The Witch Doctor. I was like, what the hell is that? That is amazing. Oh, some cat named Armand Van Helden. I'm like, some German dude or something like what is that about? Whatever. So later on at the store, we got the first Armand Van Helden Strictly Rhythm Witch Doctor thing, and he's a B-boy, and I'm like, yo, this dude's fire.
Right.
So now we're at Gramophone or whatever. I picked Sneak up, and he's just like, yo, guess who's coming to town? I met Armand Van Helden. He's us. I'm like, what? He's like, no, bro, he's us. He's like, you know how you and I are? That's how him and Junior Sanchez are. We got a crew going on now, and you're in it.
Wow.
And I was just like, cool. And one day at Gramophone, Sneak was like, yo, Armand's in town because we're going to do a record with Cashmere on Casual called The Psychic Bounty Killers or something like that. So I got to meet Armand. We went to eat pizza, and they were signing the contracts or whatever. And me and Armand he Sneak already had told him, like, yo, Bear's homie, Bear's fam. And from that time on, it was on. Wow. Then I met Junior on a trip, and it became it. It was all Mangaloids. And me, when I committed to something, I'm loyal. So I went ahead, I got a Mangaloids tattoo right here.
What?
Yeah.
Nice. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So you for real,
for real.
Wow.
That's my Chicago tat, so I never forget it. I'm a tat guy. And represented it hard because I knew what it was about. So when I went to New York for the first time and met Armand and his crew, I was like, I met Harry Choo Choo, that kid Chris. I met all the guys, Davis and Espina. I met all these dudes from New York. And then that night, we were running around New York with Mangaloid stickers and whatever, going crazy. And that's when we went to, this is crazy, wow. We went to Sound Factory Bar. Ooh. To see Louis Vega, Kenny Dope. They were doing a New Yorican Soul release party. And I got to see George Benson perform live.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was the kind of kickoff of the Mangaloids. And after that, I came back home to Chicago, and I'm done. And at that time, I had left Gramophone. Again, I had graduated. And I became A&R promotion director for SHR, which is Underground Construction.
Wow.
And all of that.
And see, and I was gonna get to that. Was my next one. The transition.
That was intertwined. The Mangaloids and the whole SHR thing. So I had left Gramophone, and it was once again another graduation to another level.
And I got a question. Being an A&R, and now all of this music is coming in, and you're hearing other creatives, present what it is that they do. Were you at that point a music producer / artist? Or were you transitioning into
I was everything else. Anything I could do, man. I was DJing, and everybody's like, oh, I'm going to produce. I wasn't producing yet. Actually, crap. That's a lie. I made my first record when I was in Jumpin' Music.
Oh, wow.
I'm thinking about it. And you can look it up right now. It's a record I did with Tony Boom Boom Badea. Shout out to Puerto Rican homie, superstar, DJ numero uno, Tony Boom Boom Badea. He's just like, at Jumpin' Music. He's like, yo, you want to make records? I'm like, absolutely. You're coming to my house. Went to Tony Badea's house. In his back garage, he had this equipment set up. And he's like, this does this. Locks the door on me. He's like, go for it. 3 hours later, I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. But I have a record out on his label called Boom Records.
So that's your first official record ever.
First. It's called El Chupacabra.
Nice.
By Bear Who, and by Bear Who, I think it was, and DJ Bear at the time. And that weekend, I remember Bobby D played it in his mix, and I was hooked. So now fast forward a couple years later, I'm at SHR UC Music. And no, I wasn't an A&R at the time. My job was to make the label cool, because DJ Tack, the owner, rest in peace, they were known as like a cheesy, poppy, suburban, hard house kind of label. Mm-hmm. So people like that I knew that I was around, the Roger Sanchez's now and the Sneaks, whatever, they hated that stuff.
Right, right.
So my job was to make it cool.
Right.
And get it played. You know what I mean? Call Billboard reporters and try to get it charted set up the promos and put a promo list together, do all that. And there was no internet or Wi-Fi at that time, so.
Wow. So during this is awesome, man, because what is dope, because I get the opportunity to connect with you. We've been friends for a long time, but now the world gets to really hear the story, because there's so much misconception. People don't really know who you are because they see you.
They're like, Bear who?
It's always been oh, that's his boy or that's dude's boy. But to get like the forefront,
well, it's
different.
It's great, and they need to see this.
Yeah,
and
right.
It's crazy because you had a legit journey, and you're for real. That's a lot of. You've done your homework, one thing, but you've also trained yourself to be better. At the craft and the art of our industry, because you're not just creative, you're also a professional that can hold your own on both sides.
Absolutely.
Of the fence.
And at this time too, I'm getting my undergrad. I'm in school this whole entire time.
Still, you
Yeah, this is my undergrad. This is like I went to school from 94 to 95. And all of this is happening, like B96 and everything while I'm doing it. So many times I would come straight from the parties. I remember the first time I ever broke night. That's a crazy question.
Oh, you said when you went in the beginning, you
right out of high school.
You were, when all of that was going on, you were getting your undergrad at that point.
I was still in school.
Wow. Crazy.
What school did you say?
North Park University.
Oh, okay.
I did my undergrad there and my graduate. I got my master's there too.
Wow.
So while all this is happening, I'm like, I had to hurry up with this school thing because this B96, this DJ shit
Because you
is
still
kicking
gotta
off.
go to your mom and dad's house on the weekend. They're like, "What's going on with the school, bro?"
Can I tell you another quick story?
Yeah,
I want to share with nobody really knows this story. First night I broke night, and now that it's my mom's birthday today. Let's say the story. So, like I said, we used to do the B96 party live, so whatever. So we were at Eric's North one night, and the party was like jumping out. I think they booked Julian and Bad Boy Bill. So Bill had his crew, Julian had his crew, but we was all one crew, right? So it was like Cool Rocksteady, Floopy, Bill himself, and it was Julian, myself, whatever. So we're at Eric's North kicking it. And I'm a young buck, right? So we're like, yo, afterwards, we're gonna go to IHOP. I'm like, yeah, let's go, IHOP, yeah, whatever. I'm excited. So we're at IHOP, and I'm just like, wow, I look out the window, the sun is coming up. I freaked out. I was scared. Because I'm like, oh, damn, my mother's going to kill me.
Right.
You know what I mean? So then at the time it was pagers. My mother's paging me. I'm like, damn. So Julian and Cool Rock and the rest of them are laughing. Because, this is what they do, right? So we pull up in front of the crib and Julian's BMW at the time. And my mother and my father are outside like this. I'm like, I'm a child. No. They were proud of me. They're like, you're working. You're doing it. And look who you're doing it with. My father and my mom had a great relationship.
How old were you about then, would you say?
Like 18, 19.
Oh, okay.
Maybe.
Did you have like a curfew or was it?
No, it was just out of respect that, because I was partying anyway. Like I was coming home late. I was
like 5 in the morning or something?
I was coming home late, like 3 or, because we had all this stuff going on. That's your job, it's your 9 to 5. But this was like extreme sun coming up, you know what I mean? Like people getting ready to go to work thing.
Like you went to the power plant on a music box or something and spent the night there.
So that was a real cute story. I remember that. Shout out to my mother and my dad for being cool with it.
Now, how did you approach collaborating with other creatives in your career?
Sat there and just studied and watched and learned and just keep my mouth shut, my ears open. And when I was asked something, I would give my opinion or, about it. But, at the end of the day, it's a learning thing, you know what I mean? I wasn't a credible producer or anything at the time. You know what I mean? So it was more like learning. Learning how to use the equipment, learning what it's like to even have equipment in front of you, or a studio or whatnot, But I'll tell you what I was good at. The reel-to-reels, making them tapes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because you started from the cassette. You start from the cassette.
So we started from
go from the cassette to a reel. That's
cassette,
like
turntables, and then it was mixtape time. We had to make, the mix.
Reel was the original digital.
Exactly. And then it became digital too on the so mixtapes was your business card, was your claim to fame. Like if you had a hot mixtape that everybody was bumping, that's how I recognized Pamp. Pamp was he did a rap on a freestyle tape that sold like thousands of tapes. And that's how Pamp became a Logan Square legend,
Wow.
So the mixtapes was everything. And then, selling the mixtapes was something else too. Like we were selling, Eddie B. House, for instance, is one of a hero. This guy was selling hundreds of tapes a week. Local cuts, I think they were called. And Bobby D had his edit crazies, and Bill had his banging the box, which is a burst legal comp.
Right.
Right. But you had all of this going on. You had Julian's tapes were fire, because I was actually, did the cookie thing on it too. And, Mario Smoking Diaz and Scott Sills everybody had their tapes out.
Right.
And then it became this big thing with mixtapes, but that was your calling. Like, whose tape were you bumping?
Yeah. What were some of your lesser known collaborations that maybe the world don't know about that you that you were a part of or that you jumped in on?
Well, I think I really got my feet wet at UC Music, looking for the butter with Pamp.
That's dope.
I wonder if we could collect publishing on all those times people played our stuff in the mix. We owe people owes millions of dollars.
Wow.
To this day, like looking for the butter. Shout out to Dance Works, Kevin Halston, not his piece.
It's a hit.
But something like that.
Yeah.
What about Fix My Sink? Because so many people want to know about that. Yeah,
that's a whole chapter now.
We about to get into the Fix My Sink. I mean, listen.
Give us the Cliff Notes on that.
Well, I mean, I want the real story. I don't want the Cliff Notes. I mean, just because, like he mentioned, you got the Mangaloids, you got DJ Sneak, that's his man, right? And then they collaborate, just from my recollection, they collaborate, they do this incredible record that becomes a global smash.
And that video was crazy.
And the video was real dope. And that was also, because what I want to transition into, was that Bear Who, or was that the birth of Fuzzy Cufflinxxx on Fix My Sink?
Okay. All right.
Takes deep breaths.
Yeah, because it's the Fix My Sink thing is everybody get close to the TVs or wherever you're seeing this, because this is, I'm going to tell you the story. When they say get in front of the narrative.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to talk it. So basically, I was home. I was at home, living at home with mom and dad. And I was older already. I remember what age. This is 2001. So 2001. I'm downstairs. And I had some equipment now. I had a 909, a 950, and I was learning how to make these beats. And I had been around enough people, especially Sneak, who was a master at 909, and he was just great at it. And I had all the stuff at home, and I was like, okay, now I'm gonna get serious about just doing this. So I'm at home, and I looped "Tell Me I'm Not Dreaming" by Michael Jackson and Jermaine Jackson. I was like, oh,
wow.
I had this talent since I was a babe, since I was a kid. I'm able to come up with hooks and say things on the fly. And it's just always been like, wow. That was been my talent. I hear a beat, I'm like, I'll come up with a hook in a song, 10, 15 minutes. Give me on the microphone, I'm gonna give you some heat.
Right.
I'm not saying I'm Rakim or anything like that, but I just could come up with these concepts. So doom, 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 doom. And I'm like, yeah, come on, girl. Fix my sink. Fix my sink. Funk my funk, yeah. Come on, girl. Fix my sink. I'm like, that's hot. So I did a whole track.
Wow.
At this time now, I'm starting to travel around the world a little bit. My name got a little bit of recognition. So I'm like I had a residency in Germany, Stuttgart. So I was going to Stuttgart like every couple months or whatnot. And I was about to go to Stuttgart, and I came up with this track, Fix My Sink, Funk My Funk. And I made a whole track out of it. After I finished Germany, I went to hang out with Sneak in Toronto. And I'm like, yo, I had done a couple releases on this label called Camouflage out of Toronto. Shout out to Camouflage. And so my records were out there. The records were in the stores and everything. So I was getting recognition as Bear Who, the producer. But I always had this imagination of Bear was going to be the producer and the DJ. But if I wanted to be an artist, I was going to give myself a different name totally and a different look and, do that. So I came up with this crazy idea called Fuzzy Cufflinxxx. That was going to be this crazy, house artist that could do anything. It didn't have to be house. It could be hip. It could be whatever. That's Fuzzy Cufflinxxx. So I went to Toronto and I'm like, yo, man, check out this track that I made. And I'm going to come out with it. I'm going to submit it to Camouflage, but I think it's a little different. Check it out. So I'm upstairs on the sofa. I'll never forget this day. I'm up there in the sofa watching 106 in Park. Sneak comes up. Oh my God. Yo, that whatever you did is fire. It's different. It's amazing. We're going to make that record. I'm going to put it on my album and this is going to be fire. Next thing I know, his management's calling me, which was part of the whole Mongo crew. And they're like, Bear, this is fire. We're gonna do this record. So we set it up to go recut the vocals. And I recut the vocals, send it to Sneak, who I think was in Europe at the time, England. That was it. I'm like, okay, cool. You know what I mean? Next thing you know, Sneak comes back from Europe. He's like, yo, this record's a smash. I'm like, how's this a smash already? They were already playing it. So what happens, I guess, Sneak had a cut of it, gave it to Yusef. Yusef played it on Radio 1. Pete Tong played on Radio 1.
That's it right
and
there.
blew up. And the record, I'm still at home in Chicago, like,
Right.
Right. I have no idea this is
Sound like me with Jack and Body.
Right.
You know what I mean? I have no idea this is happening.
Right.
So he
Pete
comes
Tong.
back and he's just like, yo, the record is fire and it's everywhere. We got to put it out because it got bootlegged
Oh.
Wow.
already off the radio. So on one side of the vinyl was Leo and Bushwhacker, some jungle beats, one of their big records, I forgot that. And the other side was Fix My Sink. So we had to hurry up and kind of get this record out. And I hate to say it, I had kind of not lost control of it, but I wasn't in the creative space when it came to Fix My Sink. It was kind of getting done for me. And at the end of the day, Fix My Sink was always supposed to be Fuzzy Cufflinxxx.
Wow.
It was not supposed to be Bear Who.
Wow.
But because of the everything that was going on behind the record, it came out as DJ Sneak featuring Bear Who, which was kind of shocking to me. But however, I Sneak's my boy with Mangaloids. I'm like, it's all good, bro. That's how if you know me,
Right. Right.
I'm homie. So I'm like, I don't want to, let's just roll. And it became Sneak's record. It was like DJ Sneak, Fix My Sink. And I'm like, wait a minute. Hold on a second here.
Right.
But I was so enamored. Now I'm like, wow, I get to, Sneak's like, well, this is gonna be a big record, and we get to travel, do all this. So finally, I'm like, wow, what I've been striving for through Gramophone, UC, all this stuff. I'm finally at that point. This is 2001, and it started moving and grooving. And we went to Europe, went to Blackpool, England, to work on Sneak's album. And while we were there, the song just kept getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and we toured on it.
Wow.
It was everywhere. It was a pop record. It was #1 dance record for 13 weeks.
Right.
#1 dance video on MTV for about the same time. So it was a giant record.
Hit the pop charts in London too?
Yeah. It's Australia, pop charts in London.
You had to do Top of the Pops?
So, yes and no. So after the record blew up, we were at the house waiting for the phone call to go to Top of the Pops. However, there was a slight chance that we weren't going to be able to do it because there was another artist that they might book before. So we're literally waiting by the phone in Blackpool for the Tops of the Pops to call and say, you're
It's
on.
your turn. Right.
So the phone rang and it was a no. And I said, what happened? Well, he booked Justin Timberlake instead.
Oh.
I was like, I would have booked Justin Timberlake too. So, but it was an underground hit. We toured all of Europe, all of England with it. I got to, perform at Virgin Record Store, the one that like Madonna performed at, and U2 performed at in the middle of London on my birthday.
Was that your first time in London?
Yeah.
So
it was something else because like the magazines had our pictures in the front cover. We did Annie Nightingale live at BBC Radio, and when we got out, there was paparazzi.
Wow.
All over us. And I was like, this is crazy. And Sneak was like, I'm used to this. You know what I mean? I'm like, wow, this is crazy.
Right.
But I will stay, regardless of whatever, shout out to Sneak, because if it wasn't for him, a lot of stuff wouldn't have come my way.
Yeah.
So I embrace it.
That's awesome. What you think made that record hit like that? What do you think resonated with the actual audience where they just jumped on it? And
2 things. Sexy, and there was an artist behind it that people can see, smell, taste, touch, and go, oh, that's it. I'm saying something that they can relate. It wasn't just another track that you hear. It was something.
You were still in the show in the video, bro.
Dude, but that's Fuzzy. That's what I'm trying to say. That's Fuzzy Cufflinxxx. Yeah. That's who that guy is, That's that alternate, like, to do that. And next thing you know, Basement Jaxx is on it.
wow.
Derek Carter is on it. Daft Punk told me point blank, yo, that's one of the most genius records we've ever heard in our life. That's amazing.
What did that do for the hood, man, for the young folks that was listening to you? Because at this point, you're experienced, you've been in the game for a long period of time, Logan Square. What did that do for all of the
Logan Square and those
people?
guys didn't have access to that kind of stuff.
They
were still on the radio. They're still listening to B96 and listening to what's going on in the hood versus the international scene. And that's the big discrepancy.
There was a disconnect.
There's a huge discrepancy.
Even
today.
In the 90s.
Yeah,
when I was doing that stuff in the 90s, there was a disconnect. It was only certain clubs like Lil Jon was playing my stuff at the Red Zone and all that. I mean, at the Red Dog and places like that. But in the warehouse, of course, Armando and Hugo, all those guys, they were playing my stuff there. But it wasn't like the way it was across the pond.
Exactly.
It was a whole different level across the pond.
Well, I learned dance music is pop music in Europe, and dance music here is underground. Like, you got to find it here. You know what I mean? Like if you're listening to freestyle, George Lamond and Cynthia and all that, you ain't listening to Fix My Sing because you don't even know it exists.
Yep.
So you've always been the individual to have just to wear multiple hats, huh?
Yes.
Because when I see all of the incredible things that you do and how you've transitioned from a businessman, a creative, and then a dean of students, is that true? So tell us a little bit about that.
That is crazy.
So all of this is going on, in the career. Now I'm a little older. I was about 40 years old. And this is when Chicago is just on fire but negative. All the violence, these kids, and the kids out there, at the time, everybody wants to be a rapper. Everybody wants to be, hard. And Kanye at the time was really hot, and the whole Kim Kardashian thing, and Drake was hot, and everybody wants to be. But there was a lot of negative stuff going on, as it politically, socially, culturally, community-wise. And I'm always complaining because I've always been one to pay it forward and so I was complaining about, man, these kids need this and people need to reach out and public schools need to do this and blah, blah, blah. My wife was just like, we're going to do something about it, man. And I was like, you know what? I am. So I called North Park University and said, well, tell me more about your education master's program. So at 40 years old, I went back to North Park and I got my master's degree in education.
Wow.
Shortly thereafter, I was like, okay, let's do this. So I became a substitute at a lot of these, like grammar schools and whatnot. And in 2017, I was invited to be a substitute at Roberto Clemente High School in the hood.
Yeah.
And where my parents actually graduated from years before. And then I was asked to be a dean. I was promoted to be a dean of students in 2018, and I was there for 4 years.
Wow.
So during the day, I'm Dean Rios, and then at night, I'm Bear Who.
So yeah, you went down that whole path of, going back to school at 40, and the missus decided that instead of talking about it, be about it.
Right.
And you did just that. You took action. Yeah. And at that point, when you became a dean of students, what did you learn by being around those young people? You
need street cred. Why listen to you? Everybody's always telling me what to do, but you don't live it. So I was like, I already did it. And I always say this to all the kids. I'm like, listen, I already found the treasure. Y'all looking for it. You want the map? I can give it to you. But this is how it's going to go down.
Right.
And another thing is, you ain't going to talk to somebody that doesn't know. Man, you don't know what I'm going through. I'm like,
right.
I'm a time machine, brother. I'm you 30 years in the future.
Right.
So listen to me. If you can go back and talk to yourself, what would you say to yourself 30 years from the future, right? So listen to me. So I had kids from, I buried 6 kids during my tenure at Clemente.
Wow.
We're dealing with domestic violence. We're dealing with sexual trafficking. We're dealing with kids that, we dealt with it all. We dealt with parents that got kicked out of that school years before. Now their kids are going through the same exact thing. So I played a different role. And let me tell you, I used to come home sometimes in tears. I couldn't sleep sometimes because of the things that we're dealing with. We're dealing with kids from 13 years old all the way to 19 years old, man. At the same breath. And all these kids had different characteristics. They had different needs, different wants, different levels of communication, different levels of intensity. And, it was this huge part of my life. So during the day, I'm Dean Rios.
Right.
And then as soon as I get out of there, or even throughout the day, I'm texting, getting texts from Skip or from, Armand or whatever, like, yo, we're gonna get a check, gonna do this, and you gotta,
right.
I got parties I'm still throwing, One thing that was kind of funny was some parents actually remember me. They used to go to my parties when I was like doing stuff at Centrum and whatnot, and they're like, yo, the night that our child was conceived was after one of your parties.
Wow.
So I'm here, I'm looking at this kid, I'm like, yo, so, I'm playing Jack Your Body at like Centrum or something like that, and your parents are getting it out, and here you are a couple years later. So that was something. But I will say this, to answer your question, what I learned is that I did the best that I could.
Wow.
And now some of these kids that graduated are now 22, 21, and they reach out to me and they're like, thank you, man, I made it, and it was because of you.
Wow.
And that means everything.
That's huge, man.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And that's a different type of outreach and actually care about not just the community, but to care about these young folks and coming up. You know, that's huge.
We had a pop-up event a couple of days ago. It was myself, Sluggo, the guys were there, Pamp was there, and, you know, we had a couple other HUDs, Julio Bishop, whatever. And there's these two young ladies giggling and kind of acting goofy at the party, looking at me and they're running away. And I'm like, I'm a 52-year-old man. Like, you know, what's this giggling thing, whatever. And then one of the girls comes, you don't recognize me?
Uh-oh. And
I'm like, how would I recognize? She goes, Rios, it's me.
Right.
Man, I'm like, oh my God, it's one of my students from back in the day. Now she's a grown woman, 22 years old with a 4-year-old daughter.
Wow.
She just came to pay homage and be like, thank you. I wanted just to see you and thank you because I
wow.
live here no more. So 4 years have passed for this young lady, and now she's a mom, doing very well. And she just came to say thank you. And that was something else.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's huge.
Yeah, I know.
Now go to the party. Make sure you go buy my new record.
Right.
So go download.
Man, I love it. I mean, and we'll kind of circle back in that space too. You know, I just want to kind of stay on that part of it as far as you connecting with these young people. And I'm sure, like you mentioned, that was a student.
Yeah.
But did the parents part? Because I know you mentioned that one of the, you know, the parents was getting it on, and then ended up having a kid. Because what are the places that you were hanging out outside? Like when you started becoming a dean of students, could you hang out everywhere then because they knew who you were professionally? Oh, so you didn't change anything?
Nope. What I did in school versus what I did out of school is, you know, different. But no, I didn't change. I wasn't hiding I wasn't hiding the fact that who I am because that's what they needed to see.
Right.
Imagine if a Drake was your dean.
Right.
What you gonna tell him?
Right.
You don't know what you're talking about?
Right.
I'm sure. You know that Lambo that you fantasize about? The guy got 6.
Right.
You know that private jet that you say one day you're gonna have? He already's done that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I'm Drake, but the concept is dudes already made it.
They need to see it.
You know what I mean? So now they need to understand that. Like, whoa. You know
and understand what it took.
I got the Jordans that you want. Yeah, I got that jersey you want. Yeah, I'm dressing in $500 jeans to school because I've done it. Right, that's what I'm trying to tell you.
It's possible.
You can't do this, but these are the things you need to change. And I'm going to tell you what they are. Mm-hmm. And I went hard at them. But at the same time, I was the coolest. I mean, come on, man. Imagine me. This is me. You know what I'm saying? I'm a little bit more professional, but... And this was high school.
Yeah. So you were really ushering these young people into...
From Logan Square.
Right.
From Humboldt Park. The same places, the same streets that I was going up and down for years, you know?
So you had real example. And then to go from that, teaching at that level, I got one. Would you want to teach at another level or no? Was that your goal? I want to touch them right before they become adults.
Yeah. I'll tell you, and this is the truth. I have this, hey, you put me in charge of the education department in the United States, I'd fix it. I'm telling you the truth. I'd fix it. I know how. I know what needs to be done. I'd fix it.
Wow.
I'd fix it. I have this principle called the all hands on deck education process, and I made this up myself. Mm-hmm. You need everybody. You need military. You need cops. You need fire department. You need DJs. You need producers. You need parents. You need everybody involved in the high school. Everybody.
Yeah.
If you're on assistance from the government, you should have to put in a certain amount. If you're a parent that you got to work in the school as a parent. Mm-hmm. They need to see more community. We don't have any community. School has become, get my kid out of the house for a couple minutes so I have peace of mind.
Right. It's a babysitter.
You know what I mean? That's what we were. We were babysitters. Can't do that. You need everybody involved. Electives need to become back. Barbershops. You need to have barber classes in high schools. The world is a different place.
Right.
So you have to adapt to it. And the kids need outlets.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
DJ classes should be taught. Rap classes should be taught. You know what I mean?
Right.
Coding should be taught. And who better to teach all that than the people that are actually doing it?
Right.
You know, not like, oh, okay, great. You know, I'm so proud of you. No. Everybody has to be on point.
Sounds like KO, huh?
Yeah, it does. Yeah. Shout out to KO. Now, doing all of that, what made you switch gears? Because I know you're the dean and then you left.
I left.
You left. And then what was the driving factor of you leaving?
COVID changed everything.
Oh, definitely.
I had come to the point in my life and my career when COVID hit that I said, I think I've done everything I could possibly do in Chicago. I've crossed every bucket, every list, everything that you can possibly do in this industry. Name one. Record store, did it. Right. Management, did it. A&R, did it. Promoter, did it. Artist, did it. DJ, did it. What else am I supposed to do? Now I went and became a dean. I'm like, I got it. And it was Armand Van Helden. He says, dude, it's time. It's time for you to graduate again. Get to Miami. You're already plugged in with everybody. Once you're here, you're going to see that it's a different world. So I continued to be the dean at Clemente, and then we went virtual, which was the most toughest thing I've ever had to deal with. Can you imagine every day you're with these kids for 4 years and all of a sudden you don't see them anymore? They were lost. There was kids, by the hundreds I know in our school that never logged in once. I'm talking about kids that were juniors, A plus kids that were destined to go to school, and then they just, we never heard from them again. So these kids didn't have a chance to go to prom. They didn't have a chance to graduate. It broke their heart. You know what I mean? And it broke their spirit. We had one kid that was close to throwing 95, 96 mile an hour fastball. Wow. We were like, whoa, this kid's going to have a tremendous season, and he's going to be looked at at school. Right. COVID happened, never got to play ball again.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying?
Wow.
Yeah.
And just simple things that make growing up and make you part of the culture, like prom. No prom.
Yeah.
We had to do prom. You know how I did prom? I DJed live. I did a live stream for the seniors out of my house. Wow. Out of my studio. That's how we did prom.
Wow.
Invited all the seniors and whoever onto Zoom, or it was Google's Google Chat. And I was DJing live. I plugged everything in. Hey, we were doing a prom like that.
Wow.
That's how we did. You know, and then another point is you have kids that were 11, 12 years old in 7th grade. So physically, your body's changing. You went through puberty, and you need to be social. You need to be around. You're sitting at home on a computer for 2 years. Next thing you know, you're a freshman at a high school, and you're just like, there's girls, there's boys, what am I supposed? I'm not ready yet. I've been sitting at home for 2 years. Right. And then you just shove them back into school and expect everybody to kind of keep going. No, it messed a lot of kids. Wow. So I'm dealing with all that, and then I'm making the plan of like, I love Chicago. I'll always be part of Chicago, but it's time for Bear to spread wings and take it to another level now. So another time I graduated.
Wow. So you leave Chicago. You go to Miami.
Yeah, and I didn't tell anybody anything.
So you go to Miami. You set up shop there, and then how was that transition into Miami? And then did you adopt the same philosophy that you did in Chicago? Like, okay, I've done it all in Chicago, so now it's my turn to try to do it all in Miami.
I felt that at that point. Now I was ready. It didn't matter. Now I'm ready. I got records out that are internationally known. I got videos out. I got remixes out. I'm considered one of the top guys now to come out of the city, and you know, I'm writing. I got everything kind of going on. So I'm like, I'm ready for that next level. You know, and I will say it, man. It was Armand Van Helden. It was this. Wow. You know, and I'd call him, and I was like, man, you know, and he's like, dude, it's time for you to come over. And this is when COVID was still happening, but in Florida, it wasn't any lockdown. Right. You can come out and do your thing, whatever. So it was a kind of a real indecision check to me because I'm still masked up and everything, you know, and so was everybody else, but it wasn't as, you know. So anyway, throughout that, Armand helped me, guided me through, you know, the transition. And then next thing you know, I'm meeting, you know, people on that next level. And I was like, oh yeah, we know who you are. You're Bear Woo. You're that dude, you know? Okay, yeah.
And that's dope. Wow. Shout out to Armand.
Oh yeah, he's an incredible soul, man.
He's a dope dude. And not only that, so I mean, before I transition to the next portion of it, I love the fact you mentioned Armand. Armand has always been a solid guy, as long as I've known him, and even I'm sure Silk, because I've seen some photos of he and Silk.
Yeah, he got mad props for you guys.
Yeah, man. So I think that's fly, and the mere fact that you, because we talked about Sneak and that record. I know you had done a record with, because we'll just, I'm gonna mention records.
There's a lot of records. It's like 100 something. Yeah,
there's a few I want you to touch base on because I know each one of these records means something to you for a different reason, right?
Yes, sir.
So, like you mentioned, that first record you ever put together, that meant something special to you because it was one, right? Fix My Sink, and you gave us that story about that because that meant something to you, right? The record that you did with Roy Davis Jr. Tell me about Roy and that record.
So Roy and I have been friends for years, and this dude, man. You talk about a pure heart. You talk about a dude that is intelligent, a powerful black man.
Yeah,
powerful black man. From day one, and it was actually through UC Music that we actually became really good friends because we signed. So UC had a bunch of sub labels. So SHR was the main label. Then we had Underground Construction, we had After Hours, we had Pitch, which was Rafi Rosario's label. We had Contact, which was Hyperactive's label. We had Ghetto Funk, which was Paul's label. And then we had Universal Funk, which is Funk's label. So I was basically in charge of all these labels, getting all this music out to the world.
Wow.
You know what I mean? So we signed Roy, and I already was a Roy fan for, you know what I mean? So me and Roy became friends, and we've always been friends. And it was first time we worked together. We did a song called I think it was Automatic Principles, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's Automatic Principles. Then we did Rock Lights, and we have videos for both. So Automatic Principles came out because I had this idea for like Automatic Principles. I had heard Pointer Sisters Automatic, and all day I was just thinking about it. So I hit up Roy. I was like, yo, man, I got this idea. So he's like, yo, let me make some beats, whatever. He sent me beats. And 20 minutes later, I had the beats. I recorded the whole tune.
Wow. Automatic
Principles. Bring my decimals, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, and that was it. The relationship between Roy and I started, and we wound up doing another record on Scion called Rock Lights, which was the same principle. And Junior Sanchez did a remix for it. Treasure Fingers. And that was my introduction to the Whole Fools Gold crew. Mm-hmm. And then that year, we went to Winter Music Conference, Roy and I. Mm-hmm. And that's when I met Miguel Miggs, because Roy's
right.
Davis Jr.
Right.
Roy's Roy.
And we continuously, and he's always said, he's like, dude, you're one of the most, talented dudes and sincere brothers, and, whatever I could do to help out. And, and it's always been that since that point. I consider Roy one of my closest friends. And then to have him and Armand in the same room hanging out, for my birthday and just regular stuff is just like, wow. This is, and you understand, like now you surround yourself by the best, you become that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But not in an egotistical way, but in like, wow, I could sit at this table too.
Yeah.
I'm part of the Avengers. I have my own superpowers.
Makes you step up your game.
Yeah, step up your game.
See, that's for sure. That's
most shout to Roy. As a matter of fact, I'm probably going to text him later on too.
Yeah. We love Roy. Roy's the homie. And then you had done a record with Armand. No, it was it Duck Sauce or was it Armand? Oh, it was Duck Sauce. It was the group. Okay.
So Armand and I have spoken about working together for about 30 years.
Only 30.
But Armand's Armand. Sneak. So everybody got to do that. I'm not trying to rush it because it has to happen naturally. So people are like, man, when are you and Armand going to work together? When are you?
Right.
If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. Who cares? Right. He's my boy. I don't really care about the music industry, so to speak, when it comes to like you.
Right.
If this were to end right now, we still brothers. You know what I'm saying? Right. Like whatever. Shout out to Paul Johnson too. I miss him. Paul's the same way with me. Armand was like, one day, we lived 2-3 minutes away from each other.
Wow.
He's like, yo, calls me. What's up? What you doing Wednesday? I said, what do you think I'm doing Wednesday? I'm here, brother.
Right,
what do you think?
He goes, chilling, right.
He's like, I have an idea. He's like, I need you to come over to the house. I want to record vocals. I said, oh, okay. We're all right. I'm on whatever you need, brother. You're my boy, whatever you need.
Right.
So, all right, cool. He's like, so A-Track's coming over. All right, cool.
That's nice.
One of the greatest probably DJs of all time. There's hands down. Let somebody try and take that dude out. And you being a turntable listener, you get it. He's like, and I have met A-Track a couple times in the past. As a matter of fact, like about 10 years ago, here in Chicago, it was a North Coast Music Fest, I think it was. Yeah. And they booked Duck Sauce. This was when Barbra Streisand was the hottest record in the world. Yeah. So they highlighted the party and there was fireworks going on, whatever. And Armand, I had reached out to X-Mix. I'm like, hey, Armand and Duck Sauce are coming. I want to go to the show. Me being, you know, part of the X-Mix kind of team family. Like, there we got you. So I went and saw them. It was like 10 years, more than that, it's like 12. Fast forward 12 years, right? So I go to the studio and there's Track, and there's Armand. And I'm like, so what's up? They're like, we're doing a Euro song. Now, for people that know Armand Van Helden and Duck Sauce and A-Track, these dudes are geniuses. And if they say they're gonna do a Euro song, it's gonna be the dopest Euro song you've ever heard. So I don't question it. I'm like, a Euro? As a matter of fact, I think Euro is kind of cool. I remember back in the day, I'm like, it's fun. It's fun music, right? I'm not saying I was a giant Euro head, but being I jump in music, selling all that stuff, I know my Ace of Base, I know my Hataways, I know my, you know. So then we're gonna do a Euro song. Okay, cool. He's like, go to the booth, go to the room, the recording room, and he's like, okay, cool. Here's a 15-minute track. I'm gonna leave you alone. All A-Track told me was, say clap your feet in it. I'm like, all right, cool. Y'all know I'm dangerous on this mic, so once you leave this room, I'm gonna give you something. Right. Left me alone. I'm in the room for myself 15 minutes. They're playing this Euro track that Armand loop that they made. So here I have an Armand Van Helden, A-Track, Duck Sauce beat. Wow. Boy, you better go eat that up, right? Right. When is this opportunity gonna happen again? So I'm like, cool. Once I said step up, right? Right. Here's my Avenger power. Bring it on. Yeah. They left me alone for 15 minutes. Clap Your Feet was born. I did all the vocals. This is how dope these dudes are. This is how amazing they are. Finish. Go to the living room. A-Track, Armand, they're right back in there. Boom. A couple hours later, songs. Clap your feet. Clap your feet. Whoa. You know? And I was like, they're like, yo, you got a Duck Sauce song. You're featured on a Duck Sauce song. Duck Sauce, you know, world famous, like millions of copies sold or whatever. And I'm like, okay, cool. Bye. Didn't think about it again. Went back to the crib. It was like another day. That's what I do. You know what I mean? Right. A couple months later, they're working on it and think months about it. And then they're like, yo, this song's about to come out. It's fire. We're going to cut a video to it. So we flew to New York. We cut this crazy, now A-Track. If I can talk about Trizzy for a second. This dude's one of the talented, creative, hardest working brothers I've ever met. The guy's nonstop. Wow. I mean, you might catch him at a red light or something in the car, kind of snooze for a little bit, and then right back to it. Phone calls, contact. Right. Wow. The dude is, the way he DJs is the way he is. Like, he's just non-stop. Coolest brother, but he's on his phone. He's videos, content, remixes. Then he's running Fool's Gold. The guy's just a force in nature. We go to New York to film this video. He has prosthetics. He has a real a designer that does costumes. He transforms himself into a duck. Y'all got to go see this video if you haven't seen the video for Clap Your Feet by Duck Sauce featuring him. Wow. And I did it. Armand knows about the whole Fuzzy Cufflinxxx thing, so he wasn't going to get it twisted. He understood the concept of what a fuzzy. He's like, okay, I got you. This video is insane. Like, the video concept, the storyboard is Armand and myself are mad scientists. Mm-hmm. We take a duck, we take the DNA from a duck and we inject it into A-Track and he becomes an actual duck, a human duck. Get out of here. Yeah, the video's insane. I thought it was probably one of the best videos I have ever seen, which, you know, but regardless, you know, next thing you know, it's out. You know? Wow. Duck Sauce featuring Fuzzy Cufflinxxx, Clap My Feet. And then I think at one point at the highlight, I was like 125,000 followers a month on Spotify just for me alone. And I'm not even on the credits, so to speak, because the way Spotify works, you get 3 credits. So it's Duck Sauce, Armand, A-Track. Well, that's it. Right. There's no more room. So if you got to the credits as far as who wrote it and whatever, there's Fuzzy Cufflinxxx, Edwin Rios, but it didn't even matter to me. believe it or
Wow.
not. Just the fact that was happening.
Now, is it more special when you're working with your friends like that? Because I know you did that record, and then with Transition, I got just two more. You got one with Todd. You had one with Todd Terry and one with Mark Farina, right?
Well, yeah. So Well, so Todd and I became friends years ago, actually during the Fix My Sync era.
Yeah.
When we did Fix My Sync. Oh, so yeah. There's other records that I did with Sneak. We remade ¿Qué lo que pasa aquí? ¿Qué lo que pasa aquí? So I actually did a rhyme. There's a song out called ¿Qué lo que pasa aquí? Where it's Sneak featuring Bear Who again. And we flipped the whole Todd Terry thing. And Todd and I have always been since that time, just cool. So throughout the years, Todd has reached out to do different songs and whatever. So I have quite a few songs with Todd, but just recently, we did a new song called HOUSC, H.O.U.SE on In-House.
Yep.
And it's always great to work with Todd. I mean, it's Todd the God. You know what I'm saying?
Todd is dope.
You know, so we have that out, and we actually have an EP coming out. I was signed to Freeze finally after all these years.
Nice.
It's kind of like being signed to S&S finally. Yes. But to be part of Freeze, I was like, so we have an EP coming out of 3 Latin bangers. Fuzzy Cufflinxxx on the mic.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
coming out soon.
It's crazy.
So shout out to Todd.
When you mention the Latin bangers, man, because my Craft for the Queen, I love that record. So when you put that project together, like what were you thinking in the initial form before you even presented the project to S&S? Like what were you thinking? Man, this is gonna be perfect. Maybe they will or won't understand it, and will this connect? Because I know you had an all-star team of people who just wanted to be a part of it and remix the record, like Soul Clap and some of the other guys. Like talk about that process and that record in general.
Well, Cry for the Queen, I was hell-bent on doing a Bear Who featuring Fuzzy Cufflinxxx.
I love it.
People are like, what? Explain that. Yeah, Bear Who on the beats, me, and then my alter ego, the one on the mic, doing that, right?
Plus the Wepa beats.
Plus, so I have this little
favorite.
brand thing. Yeah, so when I have a certain remix style, I call it Wepa beats. And those are that banging Chicago Latin, like, yo, you put this on, it's Bear beats, hard. It has that funk, that feel.
Yeah.
To remix my own stuff and put me on it, it's like, that's what I do. So the concept was a Latin banger that Chicago would understand and get behind. I didn't care about, I wanted people in Chicago to be banging this. I wanted it to be rocking out there. So the Rum Drinker was the first song on there.
Right.
Right. And then Cry for the Queen was the second on there.
Right.
And Cry for the Queen came up because one of my co-workers at Clemente is a poet.
Wow.
She was a poet. And she had talked to me about this poem that she did called, I forgot, was it Queen of Humble Park, I think it was called. Mm-hmm. Shout out to La Reina. And I was having a party at the crib, and everybody was getting black. The party was off the chain. And I'm like, Janaida was there. I'm like, yo, get on the mic in the studio and cut that poem. She's like, what? I'm like, cut that poem. So we're all in my room listening to her to cut the poem. And after everybody left, I heard the acapella of it, of course, and I was like, that's it. I got it. And next thing you know, the EP Cry for the Queen and the Rum Drinker was born. And there was only one person I thought of for it to go to Skip. I'm like, this is an S&S joint. There's no doubt about it because they understand the Skip is understand. And I knew it. I knew it was gonna be hot. I already knew it.
Now, what about the remixes? Like when you enlisted them, because normally an individual will bring a project and then they'll say, okay, go ahead, do your thing, and then we'll enlist the remixers. But this was kind of a twist because you're like, I got this record, it's an EP, got these 2 records on it, but I got remixers that were already enlisted. So I got remixers to it as well. Right. So what was the thought to that? Because each one of them came with it, and it was all authentic and original.
But I've done that before. That's my thing. Once again, I do not wait.
Right.
And if all my friends,
when you got the remixes,
if all my friends are the top remixers and DJs and producers in the world, why not just reach out?
Exactly.
What is it? Why not? So I reached out to a couple of the heads and like, absolutely, Bear. Let us rock it out. The same thing when I did with my beatbox album, which came out
Right.
years ago.
Right.
I went ahead and did a whole Gene Ferris, Paul. The people that are on my remixes will never be able to get something like that done in the history of the earth.
Never.
Ever again. You know what I mean?
Right.
A double pack remixes of people like Jake Childs and James Curd and the Greenskeepers and, like I said, Paul Johnson and Sluggo and
Right.
and there's a reason that they will say yes.
What do you think the reason is?
That is.
Love.
I agree.
Yep.
I agree.
Love.
I agree.
You know, like,
I agree.
yo, I got you.
Yeah.
Then don't even trip. Kind
Yeah.
of the Tyree Cooper. Another huge
Cooper Trooper.
huge
Super
part of
Tyree
my, you know.
I love Tyreek.
You know?
And then you did all of this stuff, and then you decided, man, I'm just gonna put my toes in the sand. I'm gonna go out here to Miami, and I'm gonna live this fantastic life and just hang out with my friends and transition and do something there, which you've been impactful. So before we go into this next part, your connection in Miami, you went out there and just hit the ground running, and not only just DJing, but then you went back to your roots and started throwing parties in Miami again.
Yeah.
And these were just as legendary, I'll say, as the ones that you were doing in Chicago. So it's almost like you don't miss when you when you touch down.
No, when I got there, I made sure I was plugged in first. I went out and got my the you know, I'm not going to go out there and say, oh, Mr. No. I had to pay my dues. You got to pay your dues, you know.
Right.
Like if you come to Chicago, you're going to pay your dues.
Yeah.
So I didn't go out there, Mr. Big Ass, you know. No. I got to learn, work, and earn my respect out there too.
Yeah.
So I started up my own promotion company, Time to Bounce Party People, and little by little, you know, I got the right connections and whatnot, and I teamed up with Soho House, and I created my own night called Boogie Beach, which became really, really popular.
Yep.
And I wound up doing Soho Houses in Barcelona, New York, and Chicago, like a tour kind of thing with the Boogie Beach and bring them to different countries and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then I went to Koyo Taco, which is a pop. You guys have been there.
that's the
you guys
spot.
have been there.
Yeah, Koyo.
You know?
Koyo is dope.
So, and I started my party there called Bango Bango. Props to Todd Terry. Bango, bango, bango. Because I was like, that's the feel. That's the kind of vibe,
Right.
kind of energy I want to present. And book people that bring that kind of energy, whether it's you or Heather or, you know, Ghetto Blaster or Todd himself, you know, whatnot. And then the third one I did was a party called Body Music, which is like a Saturday pool kind of party, which is rare. I do them if I do them. But the fact is I was able to create these three entities and create Time to Bounce Party People and pack them.
Right.
You know?
That's crazy.
I feel that there's always going to be people that want to hear Jack Your Body, that want to hear the Roy Davis Jr.'s, you know, Men of the Nile, or they're going to want to hear a Roger Sanchez or a K. Alexi or a Stacey Kidd or a Paul Johnson or Funk. That's what we bring to it. I don't care where in the world you put me. You can put me in a pyramid. You put me in the middle of the jungle. If I play Jack Your Body, people are going to recognize it. People are going to start to bump. That's what we provide for the rest of our life. And then one day when we are not here, that still is going to exist.
Now, having access to those locations, what made you decide I want to do something private and intimate as far as you hosting events, you know, at your home?
At the temple?
Yeah, temple. Yeah, what was the thought of that?
Respect. And the fact is, listen, put your headphones, put your ID, put your name at the door. We're going to kick it as individuals that need an outlet too. Like I need to sit down with Skip and have a conversation where it's not, well, you know, let's sign this paperwork and this and this, or Steve. I want Steve to be Steve. I'm going to tell a quick story and Steve can, and you can.
Yeah.
So during the Miami Music Conference, and only there's certain heads that know this, I do a little get together at the crib, and I call the crib the temple. And the people that come by, you would be, it's something else. You guys have been there. Pamp, you've been there too. You know, at the house anytime, you'd be like, oh, there's Steve. And, you know? So I was in my studio, the party's going on. I walk into my kitchen, and in my kitchen is my wife, Skip, Steve, Charlie Soulclap, and Armand Van Helden.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. I get this. This is it. All right, whatever. You know what I mean? This is and I got used to it. It's kind of like, but it's natural.
It's natural.
You know what I mean? It's kind of cool. Let me tell you a real other story that was kind of weird. So it was the second year that I kind of decided to do this, and it was pretty cool. So I found myself by the pool hanging out. Colette was there, Stacy was there, Kid, and Kay, and Ghetto Blaster, and I find myself standing right in front of Skip, Steve, and Arthur Baker. Yeah, the Arthur Baker.
Right.
Wow.
Right.
The guy that created Beat Street. The guy that created, AEIOU. The guy that created,
Planet Rock.
That created freestyle music pretty much and breakdancing and all that stuff, right? The Arthur Baker. And they're out there at the crib. It's like no other day because Arthur lives there.
And it was regular.
And I'm like, yo, Steve. And this was like a joke. You know Arthur Baker. Right. And I'm a figure these guys would be like, man, we know each other for like 40 years. They look at me and they go, we never met. I said, you're joking.
Not face to face.
That's crazy. Just like digging in the craze crew.
So
like
Arthur looks at me and goes, that's Steve Silk Hurley? And I'm like, you gotta be joking, bro. You guys have never met. No, I grabbed both of these dudes. I brought them into the studio and I just sat there while they just broke bread and started talking. I'm like, and I still got it on video. And I'm thinking to myself, what has come in my life where I am sitting in my studio, in my house with Steve Silk Hurley and Arthur Baker? And that's when I figured I was born to do this.
And that was magic for both of us, me and Arthur, because we both admire each other from afar. Like one of my first DJ battles, I played Planet Rock as the first record because I bought it at Imports, was another store.
Shout out to Imports.
Similar to Gramophone, but more on the house side originally. And that record was like brand spanking new, like hot, like the dude Frank Sales was really hot, Steve. You remember Frank Sales?
No.
Oh, no, yeah. But he would bring me all these records when I come in the store. So when you say you worked at Gramophone, I can see you work, getting people to buy all kinds of
jumping music. To this day, I think Julian and I had a competition going on who could sell more. And of course, if you're buying records from Julian, but I remember selling $5,000 worth of records to one customer one time.
That was like
jumping. Yeah.
But I met him when I heard that record. And when I heard it, and I'm hearing the Kraftwerk influences in it, but it's like hidden. I'm like, man, this is some different. Because I was DJing for a house crowd that played that.
Right.
I mean, this is like people listening to like stuff you play at the Paradise Garage. Is it all over my face?
Right.
And all the old Prelude stuff and all that. That's what the crowd was, and I'm playing.
But that movement is what made house everything.
Yeah.
Like you in one set, you're listening to Ann Clark, Art Darkness, and Kraftwerk, and Arthur Baker, and then you switch over to Marshall Jefferson. But that's what y'all created. That's what we expected. When you say house music, that was all of it.
Yeah, because it's the house culture.
It's the culture.
Yeah. And then we got our own genre.
Yeah.
Which was in its own kind of bubble that created something totally different. Absolutely. So you got to recognize before you start saying who is the person that started house music and all that, you got to talk about the culture of how we came together as a community and how we were on the west side one day, north side, Schaumburg the next day, listen to BMX, making cassette tapes. All that stuff is what created this thing. It's not just just one person's contribution to it.
And you also have the techno version that we're not talking about. The techno thing is part of it too.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Derek May and all those guys.
Exactly.
Transmat stuff.
Absolutely.
We were playing that right alongside the Italio disco.
Yeah.
And the New York stuff. We were playing old disco, of course, James Brown. You name it. We were playing good music. So if it was good music, it could be house. Absolutely. And we would make it more house by either looping a vamp or adding a drum beat to it. When those drum machines came out and we were able to actually chop the samplers and I had a sampling pedal. I mean, it was crazy how it developed. It's not just a one-part story, like a one-person story. It's a whole community.
And you hit it on the nail when you said culture, because man, we're so impressed and happy to see you transition and do even more because, like you say, you tackled every single thing and you've worn so many hats.
And but you're giving back.
And to give back. And that's a good point, too, to not just give back to others and your colleagues, but also now you're in a space. You went through the Dean of Students part, but now you're giving back to young people and you're doing something that I think is incredibly necessary and is authentic because you didn't do it as a hustle to say, I'm just going to jump in this space. You jumped in, both feet, 10 toes, and you developed a children's book, which is also focused on DJing. So, I mean, give me the thought process to that because that's a pivot in itself.
This
crazy. Now, that's it. Dreams of being a DJ, everybody. This is crazy. But this is just the first copy. There's a trilogy to this. And I guess this is one. Let's show them another one.
So this is the one this one comes out next week. This one comes out the 21st.
This one comes out next week. 21st. Do we show the third one? Do we show
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, that comes out next week.
And then, DJ Me.
That one comes out during Amsterdam Dance Event, so it'll be in October.
Yep.
And I'm going to be releasing the release party in Amsterdam.
Yep. So and we're not only fans of he doing this book, but we're also supporters of it.
Right.
So go online, support this book, buy it, and what was the thought behind it, man? What was the thought when you put these books together? Because I'm still impressed, man. I bought a copy because I had to, but only because I want to lead by example. And the fact that you are paying it forward, because A1, you didn't have to do it, and you should always get that support in-house from your peer group. Those should be the first people to buy it, right? Those are the ones that should run out and say, you know what, my man doing something. Let me jump down with him and I'm going to go get a copy and just show that love and support. And I see you had a lot of love and support where people have come together as a community to say, you know what, this is our brother. He's done something special and we want to support his special vision behind it.
So the concept behind Dreams of Being a DJ was just that. So I actually went, I've always had some sort of like, how are we going to communicate? Like, how are we going to spread the creativity and this passion for DJing? And DJing now has become such a popular, pop cultural thing. There's DJs everywhere. It's just a big deal, and there's a bunch of little kids that love to do it. I mean, if you look around, there's DJ gear for kids now. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And my nephew asked me to come read some story times to his class. His kid's like 5 years old. So I'm like, cool, big dude, different. I walk in there, a bunch of little 5-year-old little boys, and they're just like, whoa, this is cool. So I'm sitting down, then my education thing kicks in. So next thing you know, I have all these little kids all into it and raising their hands and asking me questions and stuff. And then the book that my nephew chose to read was I Love Boats. And a tugboat does this. Sailboat does this. I'm like, this is boring as hell. And I'm trying to make it cool. These kids are kind of like asking me questions about, do you have tattoos? Crazy questions, right? So that was like, man, it'd be really cool. A children's book about DJing. That would be really cool. That would really get there. It'd be cool. So at the crib, I'm just kind of like thinking about it. My phone asked me, would you like to create a Christmas image of your pets? And I'm like, damn. My phone's always asking me to do different things, whether it's Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or whatever, or, chat or all these other things, Discord, whatever. So I'm like, you know what? I'm sitting here watching this phony ass election. I'm going to go sit down and just kind of come up with this idea or whatever. So I'm playing with my phone. Next thing you know, I'm like, wow, this came out really cool. It's a picture of both my dogs. Shout out to Riri and Roxy, my little puppies. I miss them. I was like, this is dope. And I'm like, wait a minute. What happens if I changed it from dogs to DJ, kids?
Right.
Started playing with it. All of a sudden, I'm making, let me tell you. So I'm a tech guy. I love technology. Right. I embrace that. My wife is the president of a tech company. Right. You see what I'm saying? I embrace tech. As a DJ, always looking for the newest kind of thing. Right. As a producer, always looking for that new machine and whatever. Yeah. So I don't run away from technology. I embrace it. I love it. I'm not playing with an Atari no more. I like my PlayStation 5.
Right.
You know what I mean? I love vinyl, but it's really cool to travel with USB and pop that sucker in and have about 500 records right there, right?
Right.
I got back problems for the rest of my life because of all the vinyl I carry.
Right.
So shout out to vinyl though. All right.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I'm impressed. I think it's something special. I mean, like said, Steve purchased it. I purchased it, and we just love your crusade and everything that you're doing, bro. This is something.
So the tour on it now. So I'm touring the first part of the tour, Chicago. I was like, yo, it can't be any better than that, man. So so it's basically the journey of becoming, kind of explaining what it is.
Right.
Like, you know, DJs do this. Some kids have that. I want to be a police officer. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a doctor. I'm like, it's okay in 2025 to say, I want to be a DJ because it's lucrative if you do it right. Personally, my journey started as, you know, a DJ. How am I going to get equipment? You got to do some chores. You better go shovel some snow or rake some leaves.
Right.
And back in the day, because none of us had all this money, some people did, some people didn't. I got one turntable, you got a mixer, you got another. We're a crew now, Jack. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah. So the dreams of being a DJ kind of explains kind of like all the different concepts. Yeah. This is what a DJ does.
Right.
You know, my dad's a DJ because now we're in a generation that grandpas, grandmas, moms, dads are DJs. And now you got the little shorties like, you know, my dad has equipment and all that stuff. So it's like an embracing it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's basically an explanation. Okay, dreams of being a DJ. This is what it's all about.
Right.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So the second book is basically saying, okay, cool. Now you're interested in DJing. Well, where would you DJ if you could?
Right.
Because you could DJ anywhere. So it's kind of like a fantastic journey of like, you know, I could DJ in the moon.
Wow.
You know, I can DJ in a castle.
Right.
You know, get the kids' imagination. I could DJ on a farm.
Right.
You know, I could DJ in my bedroom. And all these illustrations I made myself.
Wow.
Right. Wow.
So hard to do. I would spend weeks trying to get just one image over and over and over and over and over.
Wow.
So then the third one, which comes out in October, is I'm DJ Me. So it says, okay, the first one is dreams of being a DJ, what it's all about. The second one is I could DJ anywhere. And the third one is, what's your DJ name now?
Right.
What you gonna call yourself? Whoa. So then I created like 25 characters on my own with their names, like the Stardust Sisters.
Right.
You know what I mean? Or, I was gonna save this, but I think I deserve, I'm gonna bust this out.
You gonna bust it out?
So there's a certain image. This is DJ Thunderstrike. And I'm gonna put this here. You all gonna see it, but I'm gonna ask these gentlemen, look at this DJ Thunderstrike picture. And I'm not gonna say anything else. Who is that?
Wow. Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
But it's not him, okay?
Yeah. Oh, it's not. No, but I'm saying, but
It's not that person.
It's not that person.
But that's the kind of thing I wanted to show because
that is possible.
It's inspiring, just like that person.
Yeah.
It's
And then
possible.
at the end of the book, it basically says, there's a character I do want to show that I created here. His name is DJ Stormrider.
Wow.
With the Puerto Rican t-shirt, good top going on and whatever.
Right.
Stormrider.
Wow.
Props to DJ Stormrider because there was a homage to Puerto Rico going through the hurricanes and fighting back after Maria destroyed the island. So
Wow.
it's a combination of all three. Get you interested in DJing, what it's all about. The second one, if you could DJ, where would you DJ? And the third one is, what's your DJ name?
Wow. That's awesome.
So, you know.
We love this, man. And this is incredible, Bear, man. Thank you for sitting down with us, being a part of this podcast, man, and coming to rock with us. And like I said, this is special. You want to sign off, say something?
No, I was just going to say, sounds like you live a very balanced and blessed life. Like you have an appreciation for every part of your journey. Like the more I'm listening to all the different things that you do. And even though I knew you did a lot of things, I learned some more stuff that you did. I mean, like this is cool and this is inspiring. That's what this is about.
But just know, man, what you did and what you guys did, people were noticing. And I want to thank you.
Oh man,
for creating for all of us.
No
problem. We lost a lot of soldiers.
Yeah.
You know, shout out to Dion.
Yeah.
Shout out to Funk.
Yep.
To Paul. Shout out to there's so many people.
Yeah. Frankie Knuckles,
Terry Bristol.
You
know,
Ron Hardy.
You know, JoJo.
Yeah.
And I could go on. I know I'm missing quite a few people, but this house thing was serious to me.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah, this is huge.
All right.
That's awesome. That's dope.
Great
That's
stuff.
dope.
Thank you, guys.
That's dope. Yeah, dude.
That's good.
That's good.
That was good. That was some history.
You like that? That was dope.
Yeah, I learned a lot too.
Oh, that's
Even
dope.
though I'm around them all the time.
Yeah,
I
that's
was like,
dope.
oh, yeah,
That's
I didn't know
dope.
that. I didn't know that
In
piece.
fact, snap a picture right here where we are.
You didn't know which one?
Thing.
Huh?
Which
Maybe
one?
come around. No, no, right here. Yeah, the one for the and we gotta do two of them.
Somebody's gonna go over here.
Yeah, Fat's gonna do it. Okay.
Probably cut it. If you come around here, you want to get right here.
You like a freaking superhero. You got 1,000.
I didn't get to talk about my Farina thing, but that's okay.